The Trump administration continuing to step up its assault on human and drug traffickers. Multiple media outlets now reporting that the CIA is expanding its covert program of secret drone flights searching for fentanyl labs in Mexico. Fentanyl overdose is the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45, and it's largely produced and trafficked into the U.S. via Mexican cartels, with the help of precursor chemicals from China. To discuss, we're joined by Kervin Aucoin, a former lead intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance coordinator for the U.S. Army, and now the host of the This Week Explained podcast. Good to have you with us, Kervin. This covert program started during the Biden administration. Do these reports of intensifying the program signal a significant shift in your mind?
First of all, thank you for having me on this afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody. I do believe this is a bit of a shift. It is what we're seeing here is President Donald Trump doing what he was elected to do, and that was to stop the fentanyl crisis, to stop cross-border movements, and to prevent the cartels from continuing to bring drugs into this country. And that's what these assets are doing. And so when you hear intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, this is what we're talking about. The MQ-9 Reaper is one of those assets, and this is exactly what it was built to do. It's built to find the enemy, discover where they're at, and then send a team or do other things in order to stop either the production of the fentanyl or to destroy the area that it's being built.
And what are the risks, and you've laid out some of the potential benefits of such a covert operation. Just spell it out for us.
Yeah, I mean, the risk is minimal. I think the biggest risk is a diplomatic risk, meaning if Mexican officials did not know that this was going on, and I believe, as far as what I know, that they did know that this was happening. But if they didn't, that would be a risk to the U.S. and through diplomatic relations. But it's a win-win. So you're not putting troops on the ground in Mexico to stop the cartels. What you're doing is identifying the areas, and then you can tell that to Mexican officials, and they can go in and disrupt the cartels.
Mexico, as you pointed to, is in a way grappling with a new playbook now that Trump's in office. How do you expect the revelation of this covert program and its intensification to impact U.S.-Mexico relations?
Yeah, look, they are fractured because of President Donald Trump being President Donald Trump, and he doesn't mince his words. He says exactly what he believes to be true, and he puts that out there. That's a shock to the global community. You know, they dealt with it from 2016 to 2020. But from what I'm seeing, though, nobody learned their lesson. Trump is going to say exactly what he feels is the truth, and he's going to put that out there in a public forum. So Mexico is scrambling in this. There could be some fracturing in those relations, but at this point, right now, what we're seeing is Mexico is getting this information, this intelligence from the U.S., and they're cracking down on the cartels.
Following Trump's January 20th executive order calling for a crackdown on major cartels, the State Department has made moves towards designating some as foreign terrorist organizations. Could that potentially lay the groundwork for direct U.S. strikes against the cartels and their drug labs in Mexico?
It's possible. However, that is going to take some work. Mexico is going to have to agree to that because listen, I want to be very clear. These MQ-9 Reapers, their payloads are intelligence-based, they're ISR-based. From what I know, there are no munitions on these MQ-9 Reapers. But if one were to be used, Mexico would have to agree to that, because if they did not and a munition landed in sovereign Mexican territory, we've got a war on our hands, and nobody's wanting that. Nobody wants to do that. So we've got to be very careful about the type of payloads that are put on these aircraft.
And as I mentioned earlier, many of the precursor chemicals that cartels use to make fentanyl come from China. Now, given the unique United States-U.S.-China relations, do you anticipate any new moves to crack down on China's role in all of this? And if so, what would that be?
Absolutely. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has pointed at China as being the number one adversary to the United States, and the fentanyl crisis is a part of what they're what they do as an adversary. So they have utilized their networks to move what you said, well, these chemicals to create fentanyl into Mexico. Those would then get shifted and moved across the border into the United States. And it is to disrupt the U.S. economy and honestly the U.S. people, so that China can do what they want to do, which has always been what Xi Jinping has said, and that is to reunify Taiwan. Very very good of Marco Rubio to understand that, and I do think there's going to be a lot more pressure on the Chinese Communist Party.
And homing in now on the Sinaloa cartel, Mexico says it has arrested one of that cartel's leaders, and he's actually facing extradition to the U.S. That's Humberto Rivera, and he is, of course, implicated in some of the fentanyl trafficking that has gone on, as well as human trafficking. How much of a blow is that potentially to the cartel's operations?
It is a blow, but it's very interesting that the Trump administration wants to label the cartels as a terrorist group, because in a lot of ways, it's very similar in how the leadership structure works. So if you take out one leader, either one or two more can come up through that. And so, yeah, to designate him as a terrorist organization, I think is the proper thing to do, because they run a little bit like a terrorist organization. But you can't just take the leader, remove him from that organization, and then say, this is over, we've won. No, two more will pop up, even more will pop up. And instead of the cartels fighting each other as they've been doing for a while, now they're going to be looking to, fight against the United States and also Mexican officials.
Watching this all very closely as it rapidly develops. Thank you so much, Kervin Aucoin, former lead intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance coordinator for the U.S. Army. Good to speak with you.
It's so good to be on. Thank you so much.